So from here on out, it can be pretty tough to decide what to do next. This is a big, complicated model with lots of little pieces all over the place. And where do you start with something like that? Well, as it happens, as you know, have already modeled this up. In fact, my good friend Tambit modeled this up for us. Tambit over in Estonia was kind enough to do this model for us to give us a good starting point. And since I have his model, I can just look at that as reference. It makes it very easy for me to figure out what to model next. But you, on the other hand, might not always have that privilege. In fact, usually you'll be working probably from a collection of photographs and blueprints and drawings and whatever else. So what do you do? How do you figure out where to start? Well, for one thing, the place not to start is with the little details. Don't just start with this circle and then build out from there. That's a terrible idea. What you want to do is start with the big picture first, dropping in the big chunks of geometry to just kind of give yourself bearings, give yourself a way of orienting yourself to the space. And then you can jump in and start increasingly adding detail until you like the level of detail that you've gotten to. So that is a process that we call bashing. Bashing is where you take lots of either pre-made or primitive geometry and throw things together into rough shapes until you have basically the idea of what you want. And then after that, you go in and refine it. Okay, so let's move this out of the way so we can pretend that I'm not cheating. I'm going to turn on my backdrop items here so we can see what's going on. And the first thing we obviously need here is a frame. This body is just floating in space. So let's go to the right view, head to our wireframe mode using the Control 2 pie menu, and drop in something to represent that frame. I'll grab the cube tool, drag something out here, right where that frame should be. Head to the top view, move that out, and right now I'm just eyeballing something. Let's pull this out. I'm eyeballing something basically to match with this this piece you see sticking out right about here. And in fact, this is going to have to come all the way out to about there, because it comes down to where there's a cylinder down there that it meets up with. And in fact, back here on the back, it's going to do the same thing. So we'll pull this all the way back. You can see the edge of that cylinder sticking out back there. Hit escape to drop that tool. And by the way, I just realized right now I'm working inside my body mesh, and I think that's going to be a problem for me. Let's cut those polys. Control X to cut them, N for new mesh, or add item mesh, and Control V to paste. So layers can really work well for you. If you find yourself working in the wrong layer, it's very easy to just cut and paste stuff into the right layer. Let's go back to Advanced OpenGL mode. And I'm going to go to my viewport settings here, go to inactive meshes, make sure that same as active is turned off. And that should do what we want. Now I need a little bit more geometry in this in order to shape it the way that we need. So let's select any two polys around this loop. Head to Mesh Edit and Loop Slice. Click in the viewport. Make sure our count is set to 2 and escape to drop that tool. So we've got a couple of extra loops here. Let's go to the top view again. Middle mouse drag to lasso select this stuff and move it on out. And this is just going to match up right about there. Oops. We'll just get this middle stuff first. Move that up first, something like so. Go to vertex selection mode and grab this stuff. Pull it out to about there. And grab this one and pull it out to about there. Now, you'll notice that this is very chunky monkey geometry. I'm not bothering with a lot of details. I'm certainly not adding any subdiv to this at this point. This is all just very, very primitive, basic stuff. Now, up here at the front, I know a couple of things. Number one, let's grab this these front vertices and move this up something like this, because I know this gets narrower towards the front. And we'll move these guys forward a bit. There we go. Move back to the top and double check that. It's looking good. Okay, so now we're matching up with that back a little bit better. And also, you can see that the beam actually goes down here to meet up with that cylinder in the front. So let's grab just our slice tool, or Shift-C on the keyboard, and just drag straight across. Now, if we had to a perspective view, you'll see that what we're doing is basically cutting it with a plane. We've kind of drawn a plane across here. We can even adjust that in three dimensions and see that updating, which is really nice. But anyway, let's go back to the right view. Do that again, just drag straight across and escape to drop that tool. Then we can grab these verts and move them straight down, scaling as necessary along the way. And that looks about right. Move this forward some. And actually, I think I want a little bit more detail here, so let's Shift-C again, drag straight across here, and then in vertex mode I can pull these up ever so slightly yet again. Now that's all I need. And now in terms of that cylinder, you know, if we look at Tambit's model here, well, Tambit actually is crazy for subdiv, so he's gone in and actually made this all sub-D continuous. He's put these together, and he's done that for everything. Look at all this stuff. Everything is quads and subdivs and whatever. It's pretty insane model. Not necessary to do all of that detail, at least not at this point in our modeling process. So what we'll do is just go to the right view, grab our basic tools, go to the cylinder tool, and control drag in the viewport, and that will scale a 1 by 1 by 1 cylinder straight on out for us, all in one drag, so we don't actually have to do a whole lot to make that work. Pull that in about like so. That's looking good. I'll just take those polys and copy them and paste them. Control-C, Control-V, W for move, and then we're going to move those originals back to right here. So we have the same thing in the back. We'll go to the top view, move those out so that they are where they should be. That looks about right. Now obviously this needs to have some shapeliness to it. So we'll do our Shift-C trick again here. And then grab this poly. R for scale, scale that down. W for move, we'll move it down. Something like so. And that, once again, is probably enough detail. Now from here, as I'm working, it's going to be very helpful to see the other side at the same time. Let me go down here and under inactive meshes, I'm going to make those the same as active so that everything is shaded for a minute. And as I'm about to mirror this, let's grab this guy. I'll go to my top view. And first of all, one thing we need to notice, let's go to our viewport settings and down to visibility and ensure that show centers is enabled for selected items. That way when I select this beam, notice that it's actually still centered on the world origin, right? Because we just created a new mesh item and then pasted geometry into it. It's never been transformed anywhere. Only the component geometry, the polygons, the vertices have moved around. But the center is still there. So to move that center, we'll just go to Edit, Center to Bounding Box, Center. That will move that center so that now it is where the actual geometry lies in space, which will make it work better when we mirror this across. So now let's go to our Duplicate tab, up to Instance Mirror, click in the viewport, and drag our handles. Make sure that you're mirroring on the x-axis and set the center on the x to 0. Now, something doesn't look right here. Notice that this mirror is mirroring the position of our object, but not its rotation. Basically, it's the same thing, just duplicated on the other side. But we need it to be actually the reflected image, the mirror image. So let's select this item. And in fact, notice something about the wheels too. That actually happened when we did the wheels as well. The hubs are on the outside and they should be on the inside. So let's select the wheels as well. And with all of these guys selected, we'll go to their properties and set their scale on the X to negative 100%, which essentially just pulls them inside out, just mirrors it on the X. Now everything is perfectly mirrored, and if we make a change on one side, we get the mirror operation on the other side. Now, from here on out, we'll just be throwing stuff in here, kind of slapdash, kind of in a hurry, but it should be pretty straightforward. So let me show you just a couple more tricks, and then the rest of it I'm going to do just sort of in fast motion because it's going to get a little bit repetitive for a little while. Okay, so first of all, I want to throw a sort of a plate of material on top of this thing. And a good quick way of doing something like that, I need it to fit these polygons perfectly. So just select those polys, Control-C to copy, double-click this whole set and hit H to hide it, and then Control-V to paste. Select those polys, F to flip them. Actually, that's not even necessary because we're going to go to Basic, go to our toolbox here and down to Thicken. Click in the viewport, drag the blue handle to thicken it up somewhat. Once that has a little bit of thickness, hit escape to drop that tool. Let's select this whole thing and move it up just a smidge, just so it's not quite touching the other thing there. Grab this poly and W for move. We're going to move it in like so. And then grab the front poly and move it back so that it's roughly tangent with that front there, roughly coplanar with the front. Hit U for unhide, and that will bring back our original geometry. So you can see copying and pasting polys is a great way to sort of to get a starting point for another piece of adjacent geometry. So let's do the same thing down here. We have these sort of hooks that come out the front. I suppose they're for towing this machine around. So I would start that by selecting two of these polys, copy them, then just select nothing and H for hide, Control V to paste, select those guys, and let's thicken that out a little bit, like so. And that gives us a starting point. Now I can grab this edge, pull it up some. Let's go to the right view. I'm going to pull it up until it matches with that hook on the one side. And grab polygon selection mode. We'll get that front poly, B for bevel, W for move, and rotate this around like so. And then B for bevel, click in the viewport, W for move it around, rotate it, scale it. And we just do this bit by bit. B for bevel, click in the viewport, W for move. You notice I do that a lot. It's a very common move here in Modo. Now, you could do this modeling task in other ways, but this is just it's just a very easy way to do it, I find. And, you know, if you can, what I like to do when teaching Modo is to get people to use habits, you know, rather than showing you a gazillion ways to do the same thing. I find it's less overwhelming. Hit U for unhide to bring everything back, by the way. I find it's less overwhelming to give you a skill that you know how to use, and then let you practice that over and over, rather than give you 100 different ways to do the same thing that then ultimately you won't remember any of them. At least that's been my experience with students. Okay, so I'm going to move this. There we go. So that looks pretty good. One other thing here, these hooks kind of have a sort of they kind of come to a point in the middle. So I'll just select 3 of those polys, just scale those in so they're nice and tight, something like so. That looks about like the hooks that we're going for here. Not too shabby, at least as a starting point, right? And then we'll be able to add more detail as we need it. Okay, so the rest of this is going to get extremely redundant. We're just going to do the same thing over and over and over, dropping in primitives and pulling them into place. So we'll do this part in kind of fast motion, and when we get to something more interesting, I'll stop and tap you on the shoulder, and we'll go from there. All right? Talk to you soon.